They texted me, "You're not invited to my dad's funeral." 3 days later, the lawyer called my name first. "You don't need to come. Dad wouldn't have wanted you there." My sister's text lights up my phone. "We'll handle the funeral." 3 days later, the lawyer says, "I'll start with her. My name is Vanessa Brooks, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a hospice nurse. I sit with strangers in their final hours, holding hands when their families won't." Irony hits hard because I wasn't allowed to say goodbye to my own father. Growing up, I was the difficult one. Not rebellious, just honest. My older sister was the favorite. Straight A's, shiny engagement parties, endless applause. I moved out at 19, paid for my own college, and built my life from nothing but overtime shifts and stubborn faith. Dad and I weren't perfect, but in his last year we talked more. Quiet phone calls late at night. Apologies that almost formed but never quite landed. When he got sick, I visited between shifts. No photos. No posts. Just us and the steady beep of hospital machines. I wasn't rich or glamorous, but I had something they didn't expect. And when that text came telling me I wasn't welcome at my own father's funeral, something inside me went still. They thought they were shutting me out. They had no idea what Dad had already set in motion. If you've ever been treated like the outsider in your own family, this one's for you. Hit subscribe if you know what it feels like to love people who don't choose you back. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been excluded when it mattered most? Click hype and let's get into it. The text thread didn't stop. "Please respect our wishes," my sister wrote. "It's for immediate family only." I stared at the screen. "I am immediate family," I typed back. 3 dots popped up. Then her reply. "Not anymore." My hands went cold. I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. I called my brother. Blocked. Just like that. I drove anyway. The church parking lot was already filling up when I pulled across the street. Black cars. Polished shoes. People hugging like this was a reunion. My phone buzzed. It was my cousin. "They told everyone you didn't want to come." I read it twice. My chest burned. Across the lot, I saw my sister greeting guests, smiling for photos. Later that day, she posted a collage online. A caption about family and those who showed up. The comments poured in. Prayers. Hearts. Support. For them. I stood on the sidewalk, unseen, as the service began. The doors opened and closed with soft thuds. I could almost hear the organ through the walls. I almost walked in. I almost caused a scene. Then I remembered Dad's tired voice from weeks earlier. "Just wait. It'll make sense." So I stayed where I was. 3 days later, I got a voicemail. "This is Attorney Caldwell. The will reading is Thursday. Attendance is required." I assumed I was there out of obligation. When I walked into the office, the air smelled like old paper and polished wood. My sister smirked at me from across the table. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, looked directly at me first, and said, "Per your father's instructions, I'll begin with Vanessa." The room went silent. Flashback. Hospital room. The sound of the heart monitor was steady, almost calm. I was sitting beside Dad, adjusting his blanket, when my sister walked in with a clipboard. "We're handling the paperwork," she said, not even looking at me. "You don't need to stress him." I frowned. "I'm not stressing him. I'm helping." She gave me that tight smile. "We've already updated the emergency contact list." My stomach dropped. "Updated how?" My brother answered from the corner. "You're not primary anymore." I looked at Dad. He looked tired. Smaller than I'd ever seen him. "You live 2 hours away," I said quietly. "I'm here every week." My sister's voice sharpened. "That doesn't make you in charge." I wanted to argue. I wanted to shout that I was the one talking to doctors, the one explaining medications in plain English. But Dad squeezed my hand, weak but steady, so I swallowed it. I stayed calm. I told myself it wasn't about control. It was about him. Months before the funeral, we had dinner at my parents' house. The table was loud. Plates clinking. Fake laughter. My brother leaned back in his chair. "Vanessa's too busy playing nurse to build a real life." A few chuckles. My sister added, "She's always needed attention." More laughter. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I set my fork down carefully. At least I show up when people are dying, I said. The room went still for half a second. Then my mom sighed. Why are you always so dramatic? Dramatic. That was their favorite word for me. Honest felt too threatening, I guess. I looked around the table. No one met my eyes. In that moment, I understood something. They didn't see my work as strength. They saw it as inconvenience. After Dad passed, my sister didn't waste time. She started clearing out the house before the will reading. We're just organizing, she said when I walked in and saw half the shelves empty. Dad's old watch, the one he wore every day, was gone. Where is it? I asked. She shrugged. Sentimental things belong with the kids who stayed. The words were sharp. Deliberate. I opened Dad's desk drawer. Important folders were missing. Documents that used to sit in neat stacks were gone. My brother was in the kitchen talking loudly about selling the property fast. We already know how this ends, he said confidently. Split 3 ways. Simple. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just pulled out my phone and sent a short text. It's time. Then I slipped it back into my pocket. They thought silence meant weakness. They mistook patience for surrender. I watched them move through the house like they owned it already. Bragging. Planning renovations. Talking about profit. And I just listened. Calm. Steady. Waiting. What they didn't know was Dad had called me privately 2 months before he passed. He asked me to drive him to an appointment. I assumed it was another specialist. It wasn't. It was Attorney Caldwell's office. He made me promise not to tell anyone. They see what's loud, he told me in the car, his voice thin but clear. Not what's loyal. I sat beside him as he revised the will. He spoke slowly, carefully, like each word cost energy. He told the attorney he felt pressured. Managed. Overruled in his own house. I need someone steady, he whispered. I thought it was just about paperwork. About keeping things organized. It wasn't. There were copies of everything. Signed. Witnessed. Filed. And there was a letter. Handwritten. He insisted it be read aloud. I kept quiet during the funeral drama because timing mattered. My siblings mistook patience for powerlessness. That was their biggest mistake. Attorney Caldwell had handled our family's legal matters for 20 years. He'd seen the dynamics. The interruptions. The way my sister answered questions that weren't directed at her. Before the will reading, he pulled me aside. Are you ready? He asked gently. I didn't come here to fight, I told him. He gave a small nod. Good. Because you won't have to. In the waiting room, my sister was bragging about renovating Dad's kitchen. My brother was on his phone talking about listing the property quickly. They assumed I'd get a polite share at best. Caldwell called us in. The office was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner. A thick envelope sat on the table. My sister leaned back. Let's get this over with. For the first time in days, I felt calm. The arrogance in that room was almost loud. They truly believed they'd already won. Caldwell began reading. His voice was firm. To my daughter Vanessa, who showed up when it was quiet. My sister shot upright. Excuse me. Caldwell didn't flinch. He continued. Dad left primary control of the house and the majority share of his savings to me. Audible gasps filled the room. My brother shook his head. That's not possible. Caldwell slid the signed documents across the table. Then he unfolded the letter. He read Dad's words slowly. Dad apologized for letting others silence me. He acknowledged who visited. Who called. Who cared. Loyalty isn't loud, the letter said. My sister's face turned red. You pressured him, she snapped. I met her eyes. I didn't even tell anyone about the appointment. Caldwell calmly listed timestamps. Witnesses. Signatures. Everything airtight. Then he added one more clause. If the will was contested without legal basis, the challengers would forfeit their smaller inheritances entirely. Silence dropped heavy over the room. My brother's voice cracked. So what, you just win? I kept my tone steady. Cold. This isn't winning. This is what he chose. Caldwell finished with the final detail. Dad appointed me executor. That meant every sale, every distribution, every decision went through me. My sister's confidence drained away. For once, no one left. The same room that excluded me was now waiting on my signature. I didn't choose revenge. I honored the smaller personal items Dad had mentioned for them. I made sure they received what he intended. I kept his watch. The weight of it on my wrist feels steady, like him. I don't attend family gatherings anymore. Peace is quieter than chaos, and I prefer it. I used part of the inheritance to fund grief support programs at the hospice where I work. Families who can't afford counseling now get it. They shut me out of the funeral. But Dad made sure I was never erased. Sometimes the quiet daughter isn't weak. She's just waiting. Have you ever been pushed out of something you had every right to be part of? Excluded from a goodbye, a ceremony, or a moment that mattered? Tell me your story in the comments. I read them. Subscribe if you've ever been underestimated in your own family. Click hype to help this story reach someone who needs it. Your story has power. If you felt a connection to mine, subscribe and share your journey in the comments. Every hype helps empower someone else. Thank you for being here and for listening.